Picture this: stone walls dripping with autumn damp, the smell of rust and sweat clinging to the air like a second skin. Beneath the Palace of Caen in the Duchy of Normandy, the dungeon waits. It is late in the year 1350, when the wind outside carries frost across the fields. Yet down here, the cold is sharper, made cruel by silence. Chains hang from the ceiling. Iron bars cut shadows across the floor. And in that silence sits a woman whose name once carried weight at court. Lady Isabel de Montclair, 22 years old, born into silk and duty, raised among courtiers who measured every glance. Now her auburn hair is pulled tight beneath a veil stiff with grime. Her burgundy gown is damp where it touches the floor. Her crime is not theft, not treason, not murder. Her crime is disobedience, defiance against the man who called himself her protector. For that, she has been led here, where obedience is beaten out, not by blade, but by iron, crafted for shame. The dungeon door groans as it opens. Inquisitor Thomas de Veyrac enters first, a man of 48 with a stout body thickened by years of cruelty. His leather apron hangs heavy, iron keys jangling from his belt. Behind him walks Father Ulrich of Anjou. His black cassock sweeps the stones, a silver cross glinting in the lamplight. Ulrich's face is hollow, his eyes dark with a certainty that brooks no mercy. These men do not look at Isabel as a woman. They see only a mouth that dared to speak. Imagine yourself in her place. Would your silence save you? Or would your words condemn you deeper? Devices have been built for this moment, not to kill, but to strip a woman of dignity, of voice, of self. Before we go further, ask yourself this: could you survive a world where silence was demanded at the point of iron? Where your body was no longer your own, but a stage upon which power performed its cruelty? If this story grips you, stay with us, because what you're about to hear is darker than anything you were taught about the Middle Ages. The cell door shuts, iron echoing down the corridor. Isabel does not lower her gaze. Her brown eyes remain steady, though her hands tremble in her lap. The torchlight flickers, revealing the marks already left on the stones. Scratches, grooves, desperate etchings of women who once knelt where she now kneels. No prayers rise from those walls, only silence, stretched tight as rope. Thomas moves closer, slow, deliberate. His voice is almost gentle, though every word carries threat. He tells her she must confess her sin, not to God but to her husband, not to truth but to obedience. Father Ulrich bows his head in mock reverence. He intones that disobedience in a wife is rebellion against the divine. His words carry the weight of scripture, yet the cross around his neck swings like an executioner's axe. Outside these walls, Caen's palace rises in velvet and stone. Courtiers speak of loyalty, of chivalry, of honour, yet, beneath their feet, in this chamber, honour is twisted into weaponry. The Duchess of Normandy entertains visiting nobles, while in the dark beneath her banquet hall, Isabel sits surrounded by chains. The contrast is the kingdom itself, beauty above, horror below. A gust of wind seeps through the cracks in the stone. It carries the damp chill deeper into Isabel's bones. She shivers, but does not beg. Thomas notices. His lips curl into something between pity and delight. Father Ulrich begins to pray, but his prayer is no comfort. It is a verdict, spoken before the sentence is carried out. The dungeon smells of mould, of sweat, of iron. Each breath is heavy, each sound magnified. Isabel's gown rustles when she shifts. The chain rattles when Thomas tests its strength. Rats scurry in the shadows, drawn to the scraps left by other prisoners. She knows this place has swallowed countless women before her. Peasants, nuns, even noble daughters, their names forgotten, their cries absorbed by the stone. Late autumn has stripped the trees bare above Caen, but here underground, it is not the season that matters, it is the ritual, the preparation. Isabel's silence is being weighed. Every heartbeat is a drum, every glance between Thomas and Ulrich a reminder. Her fate has already been sealed. Devices wait in the darkness, hidden for now, but close enough that their presence fills the air. The walls of the dungeon do not speak, yet they carry memory. They remember every scream, every plea, every final whisper forced from lips that once sang prayers or lullabies. Lady Isabel de Montclair sits among those memories now, her breath clouding in the chill, her voice caught in her throat. She's still unbroken, but the iron has only just begun its work. The forge beside the palace glows like the belly of a beast. Iron rods hiss as they are pulled from the fire, sparks leaping into the air like fleeting stars before dying on the dirt floor. Hugo Marot, the blacksmith of Caen, wipes the sweat from his brow with the back of a soot-stained hand. At 28, his shoulders are broad, his tunic scorched, his eyes downcast. He does not ask why he is ordered to shape these devices. He already knows. Every hammer strike carries weight, not only in sound, but in meaning. These are not weapons of war. They are weapons of silence. The first piece he lifts is the scold's bridle, a cage of iron shaped to fit the contours of a woman's head, its bars pressed tight against the cheeks. A long strip of metal curves inward, designed to pierce the mouth, forcing silence into obedience. Hugo turns it over in his hands. It gleams dull red in the firelight. He wonders for the briefest moment what face it will rest upon. Then he sets it down, because to linger on such thoughts is dangerous. Outside the forge, voices gather. Peasants crowd against the wooden beams, their breath misting in the early winter air. They whisper names, they whisper sins, they whisper punishments soon to be revealed. Among them stands Marjorie Holt, 17 years old, thin frame, coarse grey kirtle pulled tight against the cold. Her brown hair hangs loose, and her eyes dart from one villager to the next as though searching for escape. But there is none. Her crime is theft, or so they say. But in Normandy, a peasant girl accused is already guilty. The door to the forge creaks open. Inquisitor Thomas de Veyrac steps inside, heavy boots striking the earth. His apron hangs dark, his voice slow. "Show me the next," he commands. Hugo obeys. From the shadows he lifts a clawed instrument. 2 curved arms of iron, each ending in sharpened points, the breast rippers. They are built to tear, not to kill, built for women who are said to nurse sin, to carry lies in the body meant for children. The points gleam as Hugo holds them to the fire, the metal whispering as it heats. Marjorie shudders outside the doorway. The sight alone is enough. Her hands curl into fists, nails biting into her palms. She does not know if it will be her body these claws will meet. But the thought is enough to hollow her chest with terror. Thomas watches with calm fascination. Each tool is more than iron to him. It is scripture, enforced by pain. Hugo sets the breast rippers down, his jaw tight, his eyes fixed on the ground. He does not look at Marjorie. To look would be to remember she is human. The final piece is heavier. A chair forged of iron, its seat and back covered in nails. At first glance it appears almost like a throne, its arms wide, its frame sturdy, but every inch is meant to pierce flesh. Thighs, back, even the palms should a prisoner clutch the arms too tightly. Hugo drags it into the light. The peasants murmur, some with awe, others with fear. Marjorie stumbles back, nearly tripping over the frozen earth. She can almost feel the nails pressing into her skin, the slow puncture, the agony of sitting still while blood stains the floor. Thomas runs his hand over the chair's back. He smiles faintly. It is not the smile of a man amused. It is the smile of a man satisfied, assured that obedience will soon be won. Marjorie swallows hard. The sound echoes in her ears, louder than the whispers around her. She imagines herself dragged forward, forced down, her body meeting cold iron. She imagines the laughter, the prayers, the silence that would follow her screams. The forge burns hotter, the air thick with smoke and fear. Hugo lowers his hammer. The devices stand complete, the bridle waiting to close over a mouth, the rippers ready to tear at a breast, the chair of nails eager to drink its first offering. Marjorie trembles in the crowd, her breath quick, her heart pounding like a drum. She knows the devices were built for women like her, not to end life, but to make living unbearable. And as Thomas turns toward the crowd, his gaze sweeping until it settles on her, she feels the ground tilt beneath her feet. The forge is silent now, except for the hiss of cooling iron. Silence, always silence, carved into metal, waiting for flesh. Spring has come to Normandy. The fields near Caen are green again, the air touched with the scent of thawing earth. But in the courtyard of the abbey, renewal brings no peace. It brings accusation. Sister Agnes of Rouen stands beneath the shadow of the monastery wall. She is 35. Her wimple pulled tight across her shaved forehead, her plain wool habit clinging damp against her knees. Her rosary dangles at her side, the beads worn smooth by prayer. She is lived by scripture, spoken with conviction. But conviction has now become her crime. She questioned. She asked whether obedience to men was the same as obedience to God. She asked why women's voices were silenced while their bodies were used as symbols of purity. For those questions, she is branded a heretic. Father Ulrich of Anjou is here. His cassock drapes the courtyard stones, the silver cross heavy against his chest. His gaze does not soften when it falls on her. Beside him waits Inquisitor Thomas de Veyrac, arms folded, leather apron streaked from his last duty. Between them stands the judgment of the church. Agnes clasps her hands, her knuckles white. Her lips move in prayer, but her voice falters. She knows this is not about faith. It is about silence. The monks drag a wooden chest into the courtyard. Its iron clasps creak open to reveal a belt of metal, curved and cold. A chastity belt, hinged at the waist, lined with rivets sharp enough to wound. It was made, they say, to protect women's honour. But here it is used as proof that temptation lurks in the body itself, that restraint must be forced. Ulrich intones the ritual words. Purity must be guarded, as gates guard a city. His voice is calm, deliberate, but each word feels like a nail. Agnes does not weep. She straightens her back, though her body trembles. Thomas snaps the belt shut, the iron clanging like a church bell twisted into mockery. The crowd of monks and peasants murmur. Some avert their eyes, others lean forward, eager for her humiliation, and then the river trial. They march her from the courtyard to the riverbank. The spring air is sharp, the water swollen with snowmelt. The sound of the current drowns out her prayers. Her bare feet sink into mud as ropes are tied around her wrists. Father Ulrich lifts his hand in blessing, or in curse. The words the same. She will be cast into the water, he declares. If she floats, the devil sustains her. If she sinks, God claims her soul. It is no trial. It is a sentence wrapped in scripture. The rope pulls tight. Agnes gasps, the sound lost beneath the chants of the brothers. Her heart pounds. For years she believed faith was unshakable, but now faith is being used as the blade against her. They push her into the water. The shock is instant. Cold tears into her skin, her chest burns, her lungs seize. She thrashes, but the current grips harder. The crowd watches, silent except for the rush of water. For a moment she rises, her wimple floating like a pale crown. A murmur ripples through the onlookers. See, she floats. Thomas narrows his eyes, satisfied. Ulrich lowers his head, voice cutting the air. The devil holds her. Agnes sinks again, swallowed by the current. Mud fills her mouth. Water claws at her lungs. She fights, but the ropes drag her down. Hands pull her up at last, choking, gasping, her lips blue. She collapses on the riverbank, coughing until blood tinges her breath. The monks do not rush to aid her. They step back as though her suffering confirms their belief. Agnes lies there, eyes wide against the grey sky. Her faith has not vanished, but it is cracked, broken. She whispers a prayer, though she no longer knows if it reaches heaven or only the ears of men. In Normandy, in the spring of 1351, purity is no longer a matter of the soul. It is iron on flesh. It is water in lungs. It is silence forced until the voice of a woman is nothing but a ripple, fading downstream. The great hall of Caen glitters in midsummer light. High windows pour gold across tapestries, across carved pillars, across the polished stone floor. The air smells of beeswax and velvet. But beneath that shine, another truth waits. At the centre sits Queen Eleanor of Caen, 40 years old, tall and statuesque. Her blonde hair is hidden beneath a jewelled headdress, her gown of deep blue velvet pooling like water around her throne. She is not a woman who begs. She is a woman who commands. Before her kneels Lady Isabel de Montclair, the same Isabel whose auburn hair was once pinned with pearls. Now it is dull, matted from the damp of the dungeon. Her burgundy gown clings to her, creased and torn from stone floors. She lifts her eyes only once, only briefly, to meet Eleanor's gaze. The hall falls silent. Courtiers shift uneasily, though none speak. For all its velvet and marble, the throne chamber carries the shadow of the dungeon below, and Isabel's silence is its echo. Inquisitor Thomas de Vérac stands to the Queen's right, his leather apron removed, but his authority the same. Father Ulrich of Anjou to her left, cross gleaming, lips pressed tight. They are not here to persuade, they are here to enforce. Eleanor's voice cuts the silence smooth, cold. Disobedience, even in noble blood, cannot be tolerated. What are we, if not examples to our people? Her words ripple through the chamber. Some nod, others look away. No one dares oppose her. Behind her throne, attendants carry in objects shrouded in cloth. When the coverings are pulled back, iron gleams in the sunlight. An iron corset, its ribs forged pressed tight against a woman's body, restricting breath, bruising flesh, and beside it, a chastity girdle, hinged and locked, sharp edges biting against skin with every movement. The hall stirs. Even among courtiers accustomed to spectacle, a murmur rises. The devices look less like protection, more like cages. Eleanor does not flinch. These will remind the court, she declares, that honour is discipline, that silence is virtue, and that a queen does not hesitate when loyalty falters. Her words hang in the air, not justice, not mercy, but control, fashioned into metal. Isabel's hands tremble where they rest in her lap. She feels the weight of every eye. Whispers brush the edges of the chamber, defiant, cursed, dangerous, but none whisper of her suffering, only of the crown's power. Thomas steps forward, his hand brushing the iron corset as though presenting a gift. His lips twist in satisfaction. Father Ulrich mutters scripture beneath his breath, a blessing given to cruelty. And Eleanor leans back in her throne, her expression unreadable. The contrast is unbearable. Above, velvet, jewels and silk. Below, the iron corset, the girdle, the dungeon, beauty on the surface, horror beneath. It is the kingdom itself revealed in a single room. Some say queens were victims, pawns in the hands of men, but Eleanor proves another truth, that power, once given, could turn woman against woman, that cruelty, once sanctioned, could become political currency. Isabel lowers her head at last, not in submission, but in exhaustion. She has seen the dungeon, now she sees the throne, and both lead to silence. The courtiers bow, their robes sweeping the polished floor. Their movements are rehearsed, their smiles thin. But in their eyes, unease flickers. If a noble woman like Isabel could be brought to her knees, what protection do they have? If a queen can sanction such iron, what mercy will they ever find? The iron corset glows in the light, as though mocking the velvet curtains behind it. The girdle snaps shut with a final click, echoing louder than any prayer. Eleanor rises, her figure tall against the stained glass behind her. She does not look at Isabel. She does not need to. Her message has already been carved into the minds of every witness. And as the attendants drag the devices away, the hall exhales. But Isabel remains kneeling, her fate left unsaid. Her silence, the Queen's greatest victory. In midsummer, in 1351, Caen's palace shines in the sun, yet its brilliance hides a truth carved in iron, that women were not only broken in its dungeons, they were betrayed in its throne room. The dungeon breathes differently in autumn. The air is heavier, thick with damp stone and the faint sweetness of rot. Torches spit and crackle, their flames trembling in the draughts that slip through cracks in the walls. Lady Isabel de Montclair is brought here again, her wrists bound, her gown torn from weeks of wear. She walks between shadows that have swallowed countless others. Every footstep echoes like a warning. This is not the place of execution, it is the place of demonstration. At the far end of the chamber, iron waits. Not the sword, not the axe, but the tools no one dares name aloud. Hugo Marot stands beside them. The blacksmith's tunic is streaked with soot, his face set hard. His broad hands, built for ploughshares and hinges, now rest on creations he wishes he had never shaped. He does not meet Isabel's eyes. To look would be to remember that she is more than a body. Inquisitor Thomas de Veyrac steps forward, torchlight carving the folds of his heavy frame. His voice is calm, deliberate. She must learn silence, not in words, but in flesh. He gestures to the first device, the pear of anguish. It sits in Hugo's hands, innocent at first glance, a polished fruit of iron, but at its stem is a hidden key. With a turn its petals spread, 4 curved leaves of metal that bloom wider and wider and wider still, made to be forced inside the mouth, the body, any opening deemed sinful, a flower that blooms not with life, but with tearing. Hugo turns the key once. The iron opens slightly, creaking. The sound alone makes Isabel flinch. He turns it again. The petals strain against their hinges, the gap yawning wider. She imagines it filling her throat, splitting bone, silencing not just her voice, but her breath. The pear closes again with a snap. The sound lingers in the chamber like a door slammed shut. Thomas smiles faintly. Every defiant word can be forced back down. But the pear is only the beginning. Behind it stands the chair of iron. It gleams in the firelight, its frame thick and solid, its arms wide as though offering an embrace. At first glance it could be mistaken for a throne, but its seat, its back, its very arms are covered in nails, hundreds of points sharp and waiting. Hugo drags it forward, the scrape of metal against stone loud as thunder. Each nail catches the light, glittering cruelly. Thomas gestures to Isabel, "Sit her down." She resists at first, her legs stiff, her body recoiling. But the guards press her forward, her knees buckle, the iron meets her gown, and then her skin. The points drive in, not enough to kill, never enough to kill, but enough to pierce through flesh, to break the surface, to let pain blossom like fire. Isabel gasps, her breath sharp, her hands clenching the arms of the chair. Nails bite into her palms, pressing deeper the tighter she holds. She tries to rise, but the weight of the guards keeps her down. Her gown darkens in patches where blood wells. Hugo looks away. The hammer at his belt feels heavier than iron. This chair is his creation, this torment his craftsmanship, and yet he cannot stop it. Thomas circles her slowly. Every queen, every peasant, every nun, they all learn. Iron teaches where words fail. The torchlight flickers across Isabel's face. Her auburn hair clings damp with sweat. Her brown eyes do not close. She will not give him the victory of a scream. Her silence is her last defiance. But the iron is patient. The nails pierce deeper with every shift, every breath, every heartbeat. Pain does its work without needing words. Thomas leans closer. You see, she is quieter already. The chamber holds its breath. Only the crackle of fire, the drip of water, the faint rattle of chains. Isabel remains seated, her body trembling, her lips pressed tight. Her silence is louder than her cries would have been. In autumn of 1351, beneath the palace of Caen, flesh and iron meet not in death but in spectacle. Lady Isabel de Montclair is not executed. She is displayed, a body made to carry a message, and as the torchlight dances on the nails, as the pair of anguish gleams in the shadows, the dungeon keeps its secret. That pain, here, is not punishment. It is theatre. By the year 1352, Normandy is quieter. Not peaceful, never peaceful, but quieter. In Caen's palace hallways, whispers cling to the stone like smoke. Courtiers bow lower than before, their laughter clipped, their words measured. They remember Lady Isabel de Montclair, her silence in the dungeon, her silence in the throne room. Her body became the warning, her silence became the law. Queen Eleanor walks those same halls in her velvet gowns, the jewels at her throat heavy with meaning. To her courtiers she appears untouchable, a figure carved in power. But when she passes the iron doors of the dungeons below, she does not linger, for in her mind she still hears it. The faint echo of a woman's breath caught between nails, the weight of silence that followed. The court above is gilded, music drifts from the chambers, goblets overflow, feasts glitter with roasted meats. But beneath it all runs unease. Every conversation is measured, every smile restrained. If Isabel could be silenced, then so could they. Beyond the palace, silence spreads further. In the abbey corridors, Sister Agnes of Rouen kneels in prayer. Her body bears no chains now, but the memory of water in her lungs has never left. The chastity belt has been removed, but the shame lingers like rust on the soul. She whispers scripture, though her voice cracks, her faith fractured. Every time she looks at the river outside the monastery walls, her breath falters. She once believed water was baptism, now she knows it can be punishment. The other nuns avoid her eyes, not out of cruelty, but out of fear. Fear that her questions, her broken faith might spread. And so they leave her in silence, a silence heavier than solitude. In the villages, peasants gather in the square. Children laugh, merchants barter, musicians pluck strings. To a stranger it looks alive, almost joyful. But look closer, and the quiet is louder than the music. Marjorie Holt is there, now 18, her face thinner, her eyes duller. She no longer trembles as she once did. The fear has settled deeper, into the marrow. She watches the square with resignation, her coarse gown pulled tight, her mouth closed. She does not speak of the day she saw the rippers in the forge. She does not speak of the chair of nails. She knows the price of words. She has chosen silence instead, and so silence becomes inheritance, passed from noblewoman to nun, from nun to peasant, from mother to child, not by teaching, but by fear. Every woman in Normandy knows the devices exist. Every woman knows they were built for her body. That knowledge is enough. Public cheer continues, feasts are held, bells ring in the cathedral, processions wind through Caen streets, but beneath the chants, beneath the music, there is a pause, a hesitation before laughter, a glance over the shoulder before words. The devices no longer need to be shown. Their memory is enough to rule. Queen Eleanor drinks from golden chalices, her crown glinting in torchlight, yet her nights are long. When the hall falls silent and the torches burn low, she dreams of Isabel's eyes, brown, unyielding, eyes that never begged, eyes that still accuse her, even from the grave of memory. Sister Agnes prays, but her voice is broken. Marjorie works, but her spirit is numb. And Isabel is gone, yet she is everywhere, in every pause before a word, in every silence that fills a hall, in every woman who swallows her fear rather than speak. By 1352, Normandy has learned. Silence is safer than truth. Silence is cheaper than rebellion. Silence is survival. But silence too can be its own scream. A scream the kingdom refuses to hear. The mid-1350s bring no great reckoning, no trials for the men who ordered, no remembrance for the women who suffered, only silence, layered upon silence. In Caen's palace storerooms, iron gathers dust. The pair of anguish rests in a wooden chest. The scold's bridle hangs limp on a hook, its tongue-piece dulled with rust. The iron chair waits in shadow, its nails bent from weight long forgotten. Once instruments of terror, now they are only objects, mute, still, cold. Yet they are not harmless. Every scar they carved remains etched in memory. Lady Isabel de Montclair is no longer spoken of in court. Her name erased from rolls, her face absent from portraits. But she lingers, in whispers, in the sudden hush that falls when a woman dares speak too sharply at the table. Her silence, forced in the dungeon, echoes still in the hallways above. Queen Eleanor knows this. She sits on her throne, velvet draped across her frame, jewels bright in candlelight. To the courtiers she is radiant. But when her gaze drifts toward the floor, toward the chambers beneath her, her lips tighten. She cannot erase the eyes of Isabel staring back at her in memory. Eyes that never begged, eyes that accused. She wears her crown, but it feels heavier with each passing year. Far from the palace, Sister Agnes of Rouen kneels in her abbey cell. She recites her prayers, but they falter, broken by doubt. Every word of scripture rubs against the memory of water in her lungs, iron at her waist. She wonders if God heard her cries, or if only men did. Her rosary beads slide through her fingers like grains of sand slipping away. Her faith, once fierce, is now fractured, a relic like the devices themselves. And in the villages, Marjorie Holt moves quietly among the market stalls. Her hair is bound, her gown plain, her eyes lowered. She speaks little, not because she has nothing to say, but because she has learned the cost. Children laugh in the square, their voices free, but Marjorie watches with a heaviness that the young cannot understand. She carries silence like a second skin. The devices remain locked away, but their threat hovers over every woman. They no longer need to be shown in public. Their memory is enough. Hugo Marrow, the blacksmith, passes the storeroom sometimes. He pauses at the door, listening to the quiet. He remembers the clang of hammer on iron, the hiss of steel in water. He remembers the faces of those who saw his work, the fear in their eyes. His hands still bear the calluses. He crafted the chair, the bridle, the pear, and with each strike he forged not only iron, but silence. Now, when he looks at his hammer, he wonders if it is stained more deeply than soot. Normandy moves forward. New wars, new kings, new feasts. But beneath the pageantry lies absence. The absence of Isabel's laughter in the court. The absence of Agnes's faith ringing through the cloister. The absence of Marjorie's voice among the peasants. The kingdom thrives on that absence. It becomes invisible law. That women must hold their tongues. That suffering must not be spoken. That silence itself is safety. But silence is not nothing. It is memory, buried alive. The palace chambers are bright with midsummer torches. The storerooms below are dim, dust curling in shafts of light. The iron corset lies untouched, its lock frozen with rust. The chair of nails sits empty. No screams fill the chamber. No footsteps echo, yet the air feels heavy. As though the walls themselves still carry the cries forced into them. Generations will pass. The devices may vanish into museums or be melted for new wars. Their history will be softened, rewritten, explained away as rumour, exaggeration, invention. But for those who bore them, for those who watched, for those who kept silent, there is no forgetting. Lady Isabel's silence became legend. Sister Agnes's faith became ruin. Marjorie Holt's voice became ash, and Queen Eleanor's crown became heavier than gold. The iron waits in shadow, still and unmoving. But listen closely, and you may hear it. Not the clang of chains, not the hiss of fire, but the faint echo of screams, pressed so deep into stone that centuries cannot erase them. The iron remembers, even if the world chooses to forget.